we also refer, and the Bible refers to God as our helper. That doesn't mean that God is second to us. So when I hear those interpretations, when I hear those exegesis, so that is giving me hope that even in the church setting, there is hope for women. So the future is brighter for both genders.
My name is Michael Waddell, and I serve with Canadian Baptist Ministries as team lead for marketplace engagement. And I am really excited today to have this opportunity to have a conversation with one of our newest team members at CBM, and more specifically with Vennture, our Faith Meets Work initiative, Beth Kamathi. And Beth, maybe if you'd like to just take a minute just to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you, Michael. I am Beth Waithera Kamathi, a marketplace engagement coordinator based in East Africa, and also a minister with Africa Christian Church and Schools in Kenya.
So we're having a conversation today in light of what's coming up on March the 8th, the International Women's Day, specifically having a conversation together today looking at gender roles, in the church context and in the workplace and even in our homes. And for us in Canada, gender roles have certainly evolved over time quite significantly. Being influenced by our country's commitment to gender equality and diversity and inclusion. And while traditional roles, such as men being breadwinners and women being the caregivers, still persist in some areas, certainly in Canadian society, we're seeing increasingly values that promote gender equality in both the workplace and at home. Yeah, so that's kind of our Canadian snapshot, but I'm wondering if you could just maybe share a little bit about what you see in Kenya, where you're at, and more broadly in East Africa, where you serve with CBM.
Traditionally, it's more or less like the same in Canada, because in many African traditions, gender roles, which are very deeply rooted in culture and historical norms, dictated that the position of women was nurturing, homemakers, and supportive roles. And so, as similarly to Canada, the roles of women traditionally they were not to be in leadership, they were not to be in the marketplace, so to speak. Their roles was to be at home, bring up children, make up good homes, and support their husband. And this was maybe interpreted from a misinterpretation of the scriptures, that women are to be helpers. I would say a misinterpretation of the scripture. And this was also informed by both the religious settings, because in Africa, and especially in East Africa, where I'm ministering, and in Kenya, so to speak, the major religions are Christianity and Islam. And even in the weddings, this is passed on during weddings, where the women are taught, you are to support your husband, you are to be a good homemaker, you are to make good food for the family. And I have never attended a wedding which said, as a woman, you should go out there, you should be a reader, you should endeavor to be a powerful and an influential leader. That is in the traditional setting. But I would say that this has evolved with time. Like you said, in Canada, this has evolved, where you find that women are now, due to empowerment, due to education, and as you said, due to advocacy of gender equity, we see this is changing with time, because currently we have women in top leadership, even in the country. Like we'll cite a case in Tanzania, that is in East Africa, where the president is a woman. We also have women in top leadership of churches. Like in Africa, we have 6 Anglican bishops who are women. So with time, this is changing.
For us, obviously at CBM, faith is a big part of why we do what we do, and central to the work that we do with our partners around the world. And I think we all agree and understand that faith in God, can bring about transformation I'm just, I guess, curious to know or to hear a little bit about what maybe you think about how faith factors into, helps give shape to gender equality, yeah, and just changing gender perceptions around, what was traditionally sought as the way that gender roles should be defined versus the way that it seems to be moving now.
This right changes all the dynamic changes to number one, to education, because traditionally in Africa, in most of the Africa countries, women were not being educated. They didn't have access to formal education. As we speak, many communities in Africa have embraced girl-child education. And so as a result, many women, when they get empowered, they're also getting positions of influence. Like you'll find in banks, we have managers who are women. In education institutions, we have women in leadership. And also, currently, women have access to theological education. An example, a case study like myself, due to access to theological education, I'm able to read an institution. So factor number one is education. Two is globalization. So when we are only in Africa, we didn't have access to other cultures and other communities and what they are doing. So we thought that is the way things should be. But now with globalization, the world has become like a village. We are able to know what women in Canada are doing, women in the USA are doing, and this has really influenced and brought about this change that we are talking about. We can also talk of the advocacy that is going on about gender equity, be it by the government, by the NGOs. And so this is in a way affecting or bringing about this change. We can also attribute this change to economic dynamics or challenges. Currently, as we speak, many African communities are going through an economic instability, which demands a dual income in a home. And so even though in the traditional, the men were to be the providers, but in the current situation, women have to go out, they have also to seek for opportunities. And so as a result, women as well getting into positions of influence, either in the marketplace. Another factor that has contributed to this is, I'll say, a correct interpretation of the scriptures, because, like I said, traditionally, the scriptures were misinterpreted. But now with women getting into theological education, and also men who are champions of gender, interpreting the scriptures in the right way, this is also influencing women leadership in churches, and that brings about a change.
You and I both work with Vennture, with CBM's Faith Meets Work initiative. And Vennture, maybe for those listening who don't know, Vennture really just seeks to help people gain a greater understanding of what the Bible actually says and teaches about work and the value of our work within God's kingdom. We really seek to help people discover how their daily work can connect them to the work that God's doing right in their community, how it connects them to God's mission. I'm just sort of reflecting on that and listening to you talk and thinking, where do you see opportunities for Vennture, for Vennture to engage with partners, to help to address some of the challenges maybe that still exist around gender roles in East Africa? I'm wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, there are opportunities for Vennture to come in and play a very vital role in reshaping all this. I won't say only on women, but I would say on all of us, on all Christians, to embrace God's business in whatever we do. And so one opportunity that I see is in providing leadership development and mentorship for all of us to understand that whatever we are doing, is God's business. So maybe we work just for the sake of it. We work maybe guided by what we get. But those who are sitting in leadership positions and those who need to get to that level, I see venture coming in there as we talk of formation, as we talk of creation, as we talk of training. So that is an area that venture can come in. And also, I see an opportunity in creating networks and communities. Like, how do we connect communities in Africa and even communities from Africa with other continents, like we're doing IMT, for example, the integral in the marketplace with people from other continents, and from their experiences we are able to share, and we share experiences and we share others. So for me, I see venture coming in, and this is an opportunity bringing together people from different communities. Another area is challenging the traditional gender roles, because still there are communities that feel that this is for men, this is for women, this is the position of men, this is the position of women, which I don't think it's godly or it's divine. So in a slight or in a smooth way, how do we challenge this with our partners, with our communities? I'll tell you, Michael, in some communities in Africa, women cannot speak in the presence of men. So when men get into a room like this and they were women, they should get out. And so how do we, so that we do not, like, we are not in fights, but how do we smoothly challenge those gender stereotypes and gender discriminations? So there are opportunities that venture can come in, and also I would say economic empowerment, or not necessarily economic empowerment, a holistic empowerment. Because when you are empowered with skills, when you are empowered with knowledge, then you know how to get yourself economically stable.
When I was first asked to have this conversation with you on gender roles in the church and the workplace for the upcoming International Women's Day, I first thought to myself, oh, shouldn't it be another woman to talk to Beth since it's Women's Day? But then as I've been, just sort of reflecting on the questions that we would discuss today, and even as I've been listening to you talk, it really brings to mind this next question that I wanted to ask you, which is really all about men, which sounds funny, but because we're talking about Women's Day, but I'm just interested to hear your perspective on what role men can play in supporting gender equity in faith and in workspaces and in the home. Certainly in your context there, but even if you think about globally, that's great too.
One of the roles that men can play, whether in East Africa or in whatever context, is advocating for women leadership. Let them be gender champions. In our context, we talk of the he, she campaign. Like, let the men be the champions to advocate for gender equity. It's one thing when women are going out there saying, oh, we should be sensitive about gender, but it's another when men, and you see, when we talk of gender, we are not only talking of women, we are talking of a balance between the two. So let the men be the champions to say, let women be given equal opportunities. Number two is to empower. Let them provide mentorship. Right now, men are sitting in positions of influence. Majority of them are men. So they can give a hand in mentoring upcoming women. Let them nurture women too, and even maybe delegate to women. Sometimes it feels bad when when men don't empower the upcoming women, it's like they're looking for another man to come and to succeed them. Let them provide mentorship, let them be sponsors of women. And one more point that I wanted to share is many times you'll find that um, these things are in paper, they are theory. Like in some of the bylaws and the constitutions, you'll find them saying, we allow women to get into the leadership we believe in, but that is not exemplified in the behavior. So you find that is in the paper, but it's not practical. It's not being done practically. So let them model that behavior I believe in women leadership. I believe in women empowerment. I believe that both in the church and even in the market. Let them model that.
No, that's a really fantastic answer, Beth. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. I just one last question, maybe before we wrap things up here. But yeah, I think this is a great question for all of us to be constantly thinking about, especially as we continually get bombarded with negative news and just conflict and challenges all around the globe. But what gives you hope? What gives you hope as you look ahead to the future? What gives you hope specifically in this conversation around the role of women and gender roles in the church and in the workplace?
One is the policies being made and implemented, like one policy of gender equity, although we have not 100% realized it in most of the East Africa communities, but slowly by slowly, the third gender rule is coming up. So I believe in that. Through that, more women will be empowered to get into positions of influence within the church and even in the community. Like now, when we're doing elections, either in the church and even in the country, there is that, oh, we should put a woman there, or we should put a man, at least one or three men, if there are 10 people at that gender role. So that is creating hope that in future more women are getting to positions of, and also education opportunities. So many women now, like I'll talk of the institution I read, majority of them are women, something that we have never experienced. More women being empowered, more women rising up to the occasion. For me, that is, I'm like, women are getting empowered, women are realizing that they are also gifted, women are also realizing that they can read. So for me, that is, I see future of women. Also, when I see women getting into positions, even in the government, even reading as the head of states, the head of nations, that for me is very powerful. I see, oh yeah. So that is to mean women are also gifted. Women are also headed there. And another factor that is giving me hope is when I hear the kind of sermons during weddings now. It's not only that women are subordinates, women are helpers. And you see, the word helper is not to mean that is second hand or is subordinate there, but because sometimes we also refer, and the Bible refers to God as our helper. That doesn't mean that God is second to us. So when I hear those interpretations, when I hear those exegesis, so that is giving me hope that even in the church setting, there is hope for women. So the future is brighter for both genders.
Thank you so much, Beth, for sharing with us today. I think I can say on behalf of everyone listening and on behalf of everyone at CBM that we're really thrilled that you're a part of the CBM family. You have been and continue to be a wonderful example and yeah, just a role model for other women as you have risen up and taken leadership roles within your church denomination and with CBM. And yeah, we're just celebrating you today as we celebrate International Women's Day. Thanks for just yeah, accepting the invitation that God has laid before you to serve him and to serve people in East Africa. Thank you.